Hi. Hey guys. Um, yeah. So this is a different video. I thought I'd give you a little heart-to-heart with some nice little mellow music in the background. This is definitely unfiltered, totally unfiltered. No actual video or anything. I thought I'd just talk to you a little bit because, um, after making those Wizard 101 coaching videos, I thought I'd bring you guys a little bit more about me and everything because, that'd be nice to get to know who you're playing with or who you're learning from at times, because I know that at some points I may seem a little different when it comes to, you got a dog on the screen talking to you all the time. But, yeah. So, you guys enjoy this little thing. So, firstly, start off with why I decided to choose like Wizard 101 coaching and stuff like that, or maybe why it's my game of choice right now. Mainly because it's, well, first 2010. I mean, that was the first real big game that I picked up. Really fun, really enjoyable. And after really getting into Toontown Online, that was really the game that I had. But obviously, with Toontowns, you got Rewritten, you got Corporate Clash. They just don't hit the same as they have back in the old days. I mean, you can play it for nostalgia, but I can do the same thing with Wizard 101 and still really get that enjoyment out of it. So that's the main reason why I decided to choose Wizard 101 over that. But, games and stuff is not the main reason I want to make this video, really. So I think the main reason is, get to know more about the person behind the camera, really, or behind the PNG that opens its mouth every time you hear my voice and everything. But, I think it really matters that you get to understand a little bit about me and where I come from on the side of like my roots, and just sort of how I decided to really come to really do the content that I do. Obviously, it's tough to be wholeheartedly open about some things, but I'll try my best at doing stuff like this, just because I do get a little bit uncomfortable talking about certain things. But what really got me wanting to do content creation, I mean, if you can believe it, I was once when I was like, I think it was like 14, 15, my dad had this Polaroid camera, right? And the fun part is it could record videos, right? So I decided I had a little YouTube channel, but obviously that was back before I actually had like a verified account or anything that I could post longer form videos. But you had a 15-minute limit, and I thought I will record my first ever Wizard 101 playthrough. So what I did is I literally played the game with one hand and held the Polaroid camera with the other, so I could record me playing the game. So, I don't have that video anymore. I really wish I did, because it would have been hilarious to watch or listen to a 14-year-old me, holding a camera, bright smile, just doing everything, really enjoying Wizard 101 and all that. I think that really was something that means a lot. Also, back then I think I was very more on a more positive side, because when you're 14, 15, when you're that young, you're not caring much about what goes on around you and all that. But yeah, that was just one of those things that I still remember. And I think another thing I remember, unfortunately, is I never really grew up with a lot of grandparents. I lost pretty much two of them before I even really was old enough to actually know who they were. One of them even passed before I was even born, but so I've had to deal with loss very early in my life, but I never thought it was gonna get to a point where I would truly lose somebody that I really, really cared about so early on in my life. I don't talk about this. I never really do. But it was 5th grade. We graduated. We took pictures of graduation, and I took a picture with my best friend, not knowing that was the last time I would see him. So my birthday comes around after 5th grade. It's June, late June or July. Everything is you're in the main parts of summer, enjoying happy times, being out of school. Because in August, you gotta start getting ready to get back in the swing of things. And, I'm starting middle school. Everything was good. My birthday came, I went, and that, I was downstairs, I think, on the 29th, and, day after my birthday, and I was called up to, at like 4 or 5, because Mom wanted to talk to me about something, and I was skeptical at first. I was curious at first, because it's Mom usually she sounded sort of like down, right? So I didn't think anything of it. Maybe she just needed somebody to talk to. Maybe one of the cats got sick, or maybe something happened to Grandma or something like that. And she starts getting very emotional and tearing up. And next thing I hear is, my best friend was killed in a car accident due to a drunk driver. Killed by a drunk driver. So, obviously, I got very teary-eyed, emotional, but I never really cried about it. Never really did. I wasn't really a crier when it came to stuff. But that really, and it still haunts me to this day, that, but it all comes around, because, middle school goes by, high school goes by, and, senior year, and obviously, I'm starting my senior year, and, then you start thinking, yeah, this is my final year, I'm finally graduating high school, but in the back of my head, it's like, really wish he was here, really wish he was here to, graduate with us, graduate with all the friends he had still around. But I don't know how to explain this without really thinking about it, but I always had, we were best friends, but I always had stronger feelings for him. More than just, best friend or even brotherly type feelings for him. I really, and it wasn't until high school that I really started thinking about it, because at that time, really thinking about, like, I've, you hear about, like, gay, and I heard that from, like, my parents talking about it, but not being, too keen on it, since I was brought up in a very conservative and Christian household, and still am. I mean, you know. But those feelings just, truly, I know it sounds weird now, but it may have sounded weird back then but I think when I finally thought about it, yeah, I think that was the first time I really thought, you know, it was start of high school, obviously, but did I actually lose somebody that was probably going to be, somebody that I could have considered, my significant other or something like that, like a boyfriend. I never had a boyfriend at the time, and I never really had any girlfriends either. I wasn't really wanting to date people, obviously, but it's just one of those things that you just sort of thought about and questioned, because obviously, when you think about it, it's like, especially coming from somebody that was born in a very conservative household, thinking about, being gay, something like that. But, at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, maybe I was, attracted to him for some reason. And, of course, later that exact same school year, I came out as bisexual to my best friends and my friend group, and they were all, very positive on it, very happy for it, and it was a little off my chest, really, because I can finally say that being and labeling myself bisexual really made me feel a lot more at ease with myself. And that was the first time I actually felt, sort of that feeling that I had before I got told the news, right? I finally had my carefree self back. Then comes homecoming, and then I end up having yet another probably decision that, well, not even, well, it was my decision, but I get with my now partner for homecoming, and we sort of date a little bit after, and I, being silly and stupid, that how most people are when they're still in high school, and it comes to relationships, I was focused a lot more on my gaming, and that led to one of her friends came to talk to me, and you kept on saying, or do you and the one thing that I remember is they DM me, and they wanted trying to wonder why I wasn't talking to her that much on like Facebook Messenger and stuff, and then literally just they flat out said, do you actually love her? And it was like, well, of course I do. It's like, why are you questioning me about this? It's not like, but I guess, me being stupid, I just said, I'm busy right now, don't talk to me about this, leave me alone, just because I was, being stupid, and a game, being the gamer nerd that I was, I didn't have, obviously it was an excuse, but, a couple days after, she got, we broke up, and that was the second time that I really felt hurt and really destroyed. First I lose, obviously, I fixed, I was able to fix a bridge between me and losing my best friend and maybe boyfriend, and now I'm losing the second love of my life for the second time. It hurt, and we stayed friends, but as the course went on, I got into a hole again. Well, I didn't even get into a hole. Well, the previous time I never got into a hole, but this was the first time that I actually felt lost, gone, not wanting to really have anything, and I broke down. I truly did break down. I didn't do it emotionally, but I did through text. And the messenger's message, we were still friendly. And then next thing, then being in such a bad mental place, I told her, I don't remember what I exactly put on that messenger on that evening, but I said something like, you may not see me tomorrow. There might be a chance that you won't see me ever again, or something like I was gonna do it. I really contemplated it, and luckily, thanks to her, she probably saved my life as well. It's like, because next thing I know, Mom's calling me back and talking to me because she, Emmy texted her, and I have no shame calling my girlfriend's name because we got back together recently, almost 2 years. But she texted my mom and told her, hey, something's going on. I don't know the full extent of what the text said, but it probably said, hey, I'm trying to take my own life or something, or trying to harm myself, and you need, and she was worried. And the next thing, we were able to solid out our differences, and we got back to being friendly, doing our usual stuff. And next thing I know, we finally rebuilt the bridge. Thanks to a little help from her, I rebuilt the bridge that was broken. And that was, 2 relationships in a row, but the point I'm getting to is that, I've never really been that, relationships have been tough, especially for me, because gaming was, me growing up with games that meant a lot to me and really gave me the purpose of who I was. It really touched something with me, and that's maybe why I kind of think that was why I flopped the first time me and my partner Emmy got together. But it all ended up fine in the end. We're now together. We got together 2 years ago on a nice chilly, almost 2 years ago on a chilly winter evening in January. I know, very classy, but but everything went on, and then the pandemic comes around, and the next chapter of my life really took, well, I would say, change. A new change in my life came around. Because there was something, obviously, talking about being gay and stuff. I don't think, this is completely off topic. I don't think, because what I'm going to be getting into is, I accepted that I'm bisexual, but, there was something else deeper down that wasn't alongside the depressive state that I had, during after the first breakup. There was something else that, I couldn't piece it together after I graduated, Still something about, and it was still something that really got to me, right? Because I didn't like how I looked with, like, facial hair, I don't like the sound of my voice and stuff like that, There's just stuff about me and overall male stuff that really I don't like about myself. And, and I think you guys can really get into what I'm going to be talking about, because the whole trans community stuff. But this is not the trans I'm talking about, because I do truly think that I do have something up here in the head that is definitely needing some help or fixed, or something to help me, right? And I decided I'd save it for the end, or this middle section here, because I think it's very important now. Because, I never knew things about, what I was experiencing, and I did intensive research. I was looking at medical articles of, like, stuff, and, and I stumbled upon a couple channels, one prominently Blair White, talking about transitioning and stuff like that, and really talking about the aspects of, like, gender dysphoria and everything. And it's like, it was one of those things where it, with the medical stuff that I looked at and what she was talking about, it really hit me. And it's like, yeah, that's what I'm experiencing, some of that stuff, and and I continued researching and doing my due diligence on the whole thing. And even now, it's one thing that I constantly have in my head, that, I need, that, because I've spent, I spent the entire pandemic and everything up until this point dealing with it best I can without, taking immediate action, obviously, because it's definitely something that needs time, right? And, dealing with it has been off and on throughout, doing stuff online. Stuff has obviously been a bit of a struggle, but I know, Blair White will probably never watch this video, but, or even, but, I think it was like 2022. I openly came out to my now partner Emmy about how I was going to be transitioning, and she was okay with it, surprisingly okay with it. I'm very happy that she's been so happy with it, and accepting of it, and very supportive of it. Obviously, for the rest of this video, I'll probably use the term transsexual, because that's truly what the actual term, or what it was originally called. Because I don't like the other term transgender, because that's not what trans. That's the whole different concept, really, in my opinion. But as long as I am able to live my life the way I have set out, I'll continue researching, make sure I have all my stuff ready for when I'm finally able to get the stuff that I need done, you know? Because there's another transsexual YouTuber that I really look up to. There are two, Blair White I've already mentioned, but also transsexual man by the name of Buck Angel, who's probably, an elder, really, to transsexualism and stuff like that. And, it was, those two really, helped me get through all the sort of helped me with like misinformation. And that's why, I had in like 2023, I had, the whole thing set up where I was going to drive myself down to clinic and get my first ever, HRT stuff. But it never happened because my car broke down. I didn't actually have the money at the time. I think that was the case. And, well, then of course, my car breaks down the year after because I had to reschedule it. And then, I start watching stuff by Buck Angel and start learning some stuff about, some of this, stuff that I didn't know about. And it was, especially like complications with like certain things that the transgender side goes through, to actually try to change their sex, right? Whereas somebody like Blair White, Buck Angel, knew better and told the they're honest about the complications that come with that type of stuff, and it made me take a step back and realize that, whoa, I need to really step back for a second and think about this. Am I willing to forego surgeries that could really mess up my body and just be acceptive that I will always be, that's what I like about transsexualism is, I can sit here and accept that I can never really change the biology about me, but I can always present myself in a way that really looks, like the opposite, And I think Buck Angel puts it in a very, very nice and humorous way that it is a permanent costume of sorts, right? Because you're expressing yourself to the world that you're looking, that, hey, I am, in my case, it would be I'm a biological male, and I won't deny that fact, but I will do everything that it takes to try to live my life as best as I can, as presenting, and everything like the other sex, which is obviously a woman, but like a Blair White, because I think Blair White is probably one of the better. I bet there are transsexual people out there that are, not in my boat particularly, but people that are maybe, about my age, really trying to think about themselves. And I think my advice to you is wait. Obviously, I don't think I know everything about myself yet, and that's why I'm still waiting. I get some financial stuff going, and maybe in like a couple years or so, if I still feel the dysphoria, I'll go along with it. But right now, I am happy to still live my life and maybe try to look a little bit less more androgynous than sometimes, rather than, masculine, or, try to dress a little bit more feminine from time to time and stuff like that. But, just knowing that, I still have my wonderful girlfriend behind me that will continue to support me through all that is really a good thing. I guess the last thing, is that, I guess my worldview is something that I could talk about, but I don't think you guys want to sit here and listen to me ramble on about what goes on in this in the United States and stuff, because you guys already hear a lot about that. So I guess the last thing I could talk about, how I got to being the white and sort of, pinkish husky that you see in front of you on your screen talking to you. I guess that's something I could talk about, but I think that could be a way different video for people that are actually interested in learning about how I got into the furry fandom, but I think I'll save that for later, because that's really not important, because it really doesn't matter that, because just having a talking dog on your screen really doesn't mean anything. It's a character that I made to be able to express myself a little differently, but as long as I'm able to just do what I want to do, that is within limits to what I can do, obviously. It's no shame in having this character as as sort of the channel mascot and stuff, We've been on a really emotional roller coaster for the past 30 minutes or so. So, I know some people will probably have already clicked off this video, but if you have made it to this point, I thank you for sitting around and listening to this weird old person, just this weird person talking to you, But, because I know to a common person or somebody that's, has different views than me, I know they probably are like, they obviously might have different opinions of me and, all of this, especially with the transsexual stuff. I know that is a difficult talking point right now in a world where a lot of this trans activism is really going on and really being a pain in the rear end to politics. But I think because I think, in my opinion, I think there are way too many people, or not enough normal transsexual people that are, if they told their story to the public and stuff, I think, or people that really needed to understand what transsexualism was, I think you'd have a lot more, or at least try more pushback against what goes on in the politics of being trans and stuff. I think that would really help and really make some changes. But this isn't supposed to be a political video. This is supposed to be about me and get to know me. You've got to know a little bit about me, about the past and the present me. So let's go and maybe look a little bit into what the future may hold for us, and, well, just me overall as a content creator. I still want to keep making Wizard 101 content, stream, heck, maybe even play other games. But I think the last thing that I wanted to really cover, and I guess the future, is try to really bring out the best from not just me, but from you guys, the viewers and people that watch. I really think my envisionment for this community at the start was really just bringing people together. You know, you guys get to enjoy a dog on the screen playing games and stuff. You know, that's, you know, gaming is probably one of the things besides stuff like sports that really bring some people together, right? You know, no matter their race, gender slash sex, I guess, creed, you know, whole 9 yards. You know, it doesn't matter who you are. You know, you have a common like, and that's gaming, right? Something where, you know, you can put all the real life stuff away to the side and just enjoy games together and just have a good time. And that's the kind of community I want to build. You know, but I don't think it's going to like be one of the best or really pop off. You know, obviously I don't think I'd ever be that strong and charismatic to do so. But I'd like to try, because it's been something that, even if I haven't been the most vocal about what I want to do with, you know, YouTube and stuff, I think it really comes down to the fact that I really need to maybe start looking towards, you know, what else I can do. Obviously, I do have plans to make like a second channel to talk about real life stuff, or just politics, you know, just stuff that's going on in the world in general. Maybe. I don't think it'd be something that would go great with the brand, obviously, but, you know, I think my Twitter is best summed up. You know, I have my normal, you know, I've had a political swing recently with like what I've been talking about on my Twitter. And, you know, I'm not really the most political person. And I would just put it that, you know. But recent events have really gotten me a little stirred up. But that's neither here or there. I don't want to spotlight politics as a ton in this video, just because it really doesn't have a lot to play, except really the fact that maybe, yes, you know, growing up in a conservative household, I did grow up mostly very right-wing-ish. Then I sort of, you know, went a little bit of back and forth through the pandemic, obviously. But I think, you know, I've finally been able to, you know, come back out mostly intact, I guess. I guess the one thing that's changed is, you know, the whole transsexual thing. I guess the last thing, I mean, you know, I hope you guys will stick with me. I guess the last thing I could really cover is just my journey through just being through grown and raised in a very conservative Christian household. But, you know, I don't think I should really talk about, I think I can make an entire deconstructing my faith video, because that would just be something I could sit there and talk about for, once again, like another 30 minutes or so. And, you know, we're about to hit the 40-minute mark here, so I don't want to, you know, really add another 30 minutes onto this video. But I guess the real thing that I want to really say before I really decide to close this up is, you know, I hope that, you know, hope this video really cleared up some stuff and really lets you get to understand a little bit about who I am as a person. You know, I may not be, I may have bad uploading habits when it comes to uploading videos, but you know, I try my best, and I really do try to show my best when I'm on camera, right? Or just recording in general. Like, you know, it's one of those things that I need to do, keep doing. It's repetition that I need to get better at. You know, I started out gaming, and I guess that won't go away for a while. It truly is something to think about, really, when the stuff that I went through. I'm glad that I've came out all right, I'd say. Given everything that happened in my life early on, I think it's really been a roller coaster for me. But truly, I think that 2025 has been the best year for me in a long time. It really has. 2024 is up there too, but you know, 2025 has probably been the best because I've never really been slumped into, you know, I know I've had relapses in the past, but I never really had any in 2024, and I haven't had any this year. So, you know, I've been better off mentally, and I think it has a lot to do with some of the people that I watch and a lot of the content I've been consuming more overall as a whole, really. You know, I've really started looking, like I've said, I talked about like Blair White, Buck Angel, people like those, you know, transsexual people. But I've also been really into watching stuff that just really gets me sort of laughing at people just being stupid, you know, just, you know, you got those, you know, and most of them are kind of political based, but, you know, politics are kind of fun, you know, in their own way. They do get kind of comical at times or stuff like that. But besides that, you know, I've been a lot more happier, you know, because I guess what I can say is I think I was at a point in like 2023, 2022 when I first came out that, you know, I had to go all in on transitioning like right away, right? Which obviously gave me the worries of like financial, you know, financial and then emotional stuff and physical stuff and the whole 9 yards. And I think after watching a lot of Blair White and Buck Angel recently, it's really, even back in 2024, you know, I think watching a lot of, you know, a lot of their content has really made me think about it. Not the fact that it's really made me just be a little bit more accepting of some things that I think in 2020, my 2022 self, I really would have doubled down on, you know, really going to get like the gender affirming surgeries and stuff, but now I don't, I've been a lot more accepting of just the biological part of it. I think that was my main hang up, is that I couldn't fit, obviously you can never change that physically. You can never physically change your biology, and I think that was the hang up in 2022, is I wanted to really be, fully do it. And nowadays I can just accept that, I'm never going to get to that point. I know I went full swing back to being trans and stuff, but I think my, I know I talk a lot about gaming and stuff, but it's through gaming that has really helped me build a way to express myself without needing to worry about fully, worrying, I can play and express myself in games better than I can in real life, really. At times. The characters that I guess the one other thing that I wanted to cover is a little dream or story that I had. And it was probably when, a couple years ago, it was me. I was dreaming and there was me, right? And I was walking around and I heard this voice. It was feminine-ish. It was a feminine voice, and it looked like an older version of me, right? Just a lot more feminine looking, a lot more, like a lot more feminine looking. And, and it was just one of those things where it's like, it really made me think, And I think that's where I finally accepted it. It's just like one of those things where, because there was a lot of stuff that happened in that dream where, and you know how dreams are. They're very, sometimes you just can't put your finger on what they mean, but I knew what it was trying to tell me. Do I know what that version of me actually looks like right now? My older self? No, of course not. I got plenty of years to live. Plenty of years to experience stuff. But I think that dream really told me that, either way, that, in these couple coming years, I could end it. There could be two ways of coming out of it. But either way I come out of it, I am willing to accept and be happy with it. I think that's what really came out of that dream, is both sides, both versions of me talking to each other. The transsexual version of me and the not transsexual version of me. I guess the version of me that was also there at the same time, talking, just talking, really, and both sides really seemed happy with each other, right? The one side that is, that one side that, and I don't think it's two sides, opposing. I think it's two sides of the same coin. I understand that gender dysphoria is hard and stuff, but who knows? Maybe I can, really make it better. But I remember there was one thing in that dream that really told me something, and it was pretty much along the lines of, no matter which way you go, you'll still be happy no matter what at the end. And that has some power to it, really. I think that dream really opened my eyes about really thinking about being trans and stuff, because I know I talked a little bit about stuff, about my childhood and stuff, and a little bit about me early on and stuff. But, I'm not trying to put trans as the way I want to identify and express myself as and make it my entire personality, but just being able to just have a dream that really sort of showed me what was really going on in my, to really understand a little bit, Do I think I still have my gender dysphoria? Oh yeah, definitely. I definitely do. I do have days still. Now, are they days that I'm overly depressed and stuff? No, definitely not. But they're days that, I could definitely feel that it's still just, whether it's just how I'm overall presenting in public and stuff, or stuff like that. Or not really that, it's just, one of those things where it's I just don't feel comfortable. Right? Just presenting the way I do. And stuff like that. But I think there's a lot more that goes on in my head about the gender dysphoria that I just don't understand still. And probably won't understand. Because that's just how the brain works, But it's there. And I just have to accept that it's there. Because I really want to try, and I really want you guys to watch me come to the end of the tunnel like that, like the way I want to be, the way I want to live, the way I want to present myself. I want you guys to see that best version of me. And I think that was the whole reason to make this video, is to give you an idea of who I am, what happened in my life to get me to this point, and what I'm looking at forward into the future, and hoping that you guys will stick along for the ride. here I said I didn't want to talk too long, and we're already almost to an hour. But I think it was a long overdue video, because I've never really given like heart-to-heart videos or stuff where I really spill it out, really tell you the ins and outs of the person or me, because I've always been somebody that's really been a little closed up in terms of social ability. I do like going out in public and stuff, but you know, I guess really the last thing I guess to end it off is I have really made. I'm really glad that, you know, for the friends that I have on Discord and stuff, my online friends, but also just my girlfriend, my partner, that I'm hoping that we can be together for until we are, you know, just, you know, we can live that happily ever after, right? I don't know if you'll watch the whole thing, Emmy, but just like to say on camera, I guess. And I guess I'll even say to your face too, because I do need you to know this as well, that you have been a light in my darkest moments, and if it weren't for you, don't know where I'd be. I really don't. Not gonna try and get too emotional about it, but I think, you know, you've been my biggest supporter when I came out as trans and all this, as a transsexual and all that. And I'm very grateful that, you know, we're almost at 2 years dating, and I can't think of any other world or place that I would want to rather be than with you. I love you very much. I think that's a great way to end this video, because I really thank her for a lot of me being able to really be able to open up and stuff, because I've always been so closed about my life and stuff that the only person that I really talk about opening up and opening myself up to is her. But yeah, I think that's a great way to end it, because I don't want to keep rambling, and we're almost to an hour. But yeah, so hopefully this little heart-to-heart that we sat here and did for about an hour lets you just get to know a little bit about, or a lot about, the person before you, well, talking through this microphone and stuff. But now I might make a couple more videos later down the line talking about some other things, because I think there are a couple things that I didn't get to talk about in this one that would really be stories that might need to be heard. So I think we'll just leave it at that. I'm not going to do the whole, you know, liking this video and all that, because I don't think you need to do something like that in a video like this. because more personal videos, you know, you can say those lines repetitive over and over again in other videos, but in a video that really comes from the heart and stuff like that, I don't think it's a fitting place to have those words and stuff. But I will thank you guys for watching to the end if you did, because I really do appreciate it. And I appreciate everybody that has watched a lot of the Pokemon Battle Revolution videos and the Wizard 101 playthrough videos that I made early on a couple years ago, and the videos that I made recently with the whole Wizard 101 Death Masterclass and stuff like that. That was really fun to make, and I really did enjoy it. You know, I love all of you guys, because you guys make it possible to let me do what I want to do on YouTube and Twitch once I get back to streaming again. You know, so I just want to let you guys know from the bottom of my heart, thank you very, very much. You guys mean a lot to me. You really do. And, well, I got nothing else. So with all that being said, I thank you so much for coming, watching this video, and from the bottom of my heart, I wish you guys a great day, and hope you guys are living your best life, because that's what anybody should be able to do, is be able to live their best life. So yeah, thank you so much. I will see you guys later.